I'm Mr. Rosansky, and this is a speed run of PSAT 89 Practice Test 1, the C module, the second module, the hard one. Let's get it started by heading to the first conventions question. It's going to be somewhere around here. 14 conventions. We check for our omega considerations, and I don't see anything. Such a weird thing to see a capital "and" there. Now, I'm not going to refuse it because you can't start a sentence with "and" because that's not true. He stays on the table. Omega considerations fall. I look for consistency at this point. I'm going to go after this semicolon. In the surrounding text, I see a colon. I don't see another semicolon, but in this environment, I did see a comma and an "and," so I'm suspect that I have the consistency of a list with comma. I'm going to go make sure I have a list. My list seems to start right here with this clone is the first thing in the list. Can is what they're attached to. I would draw a straight line right here if I could. Clone, enter, and grow. Those are my three things in the list. Absolutely. 14 is B. 15. Omega considerations for this is going to be verbs is what's poppin'. I've got verbs on the table. I've got a singular, a plural, and a plural. I'm going to go biasing the odd man out, go looking for a subject. It's not we. We is not the subject. It's in a prepositional phrase. Additionally, even though we, the word is plural, it's in quotation, so it would be singular, but to be as precise as possible, use is the subject. 16, omega consideration. What do we've got? Absolutely nothing for this one. This is a weird little shape. I know that consistency, we can check for this semicolon, but we'll have to do more because I see that there are two of them. I do not see a semicolon in the surrounding text, so consistency falls. We've got nothing for equivalence, and then we're on the final four. I'm going to go biasing just one of these two semicolons randomly because I want to check to see if I have a complete sentence on either side. Read it, would you use a period? Read the other side, would you use a period? I do feel like I've got a complete sentence on either side. To diagram this, we've got our independent clause right here. It is that is starting a dependent clause whose subject and verb is right here. Then we've got a different type of dependent clause right here with this in which technologies are. This is the third dependent clause, but to have a complete sentence, all we need is an independent clause, and that is absolutely satisfied. On to the right side, I've got the reawakening is my subject. The reawakening reminds us is the verb of the independent clause. Then, just like the last one, I've got a dependent clause right there with its verb being that of modality, and that's all I've got. So I have a complete sentence on either side, so that's going to take these two off the table. It's one of these. The even so at the end is crazy. This even so is saying that there's some sort of even soage, some sort of relationship demonstrated by even so between what I'm highlighting in this very blue and this idea. A is saying something crazy that the even so is relating this blue idea to something not even in the text. So that's going to be trash. C's our right answer. 17. 17. We've got the omega consideration misplaced modifier. Absolutely. I see misplaced. I see like the same kind of units swapped around throughout this text. So I go to the start of the sentence. It's got a pioneer. A pioneer, who or what is a pioneer? A person. So I want a person to be my subject. A is kind of crazy. One thing that I could do is and as the subject, but then this may would be stranded from a verb. That's one analysis. Let's say I said, okay, fossils is the subject, that's a bridge, fossils accesses may as it's supposed to, fossils may be. If that's the case, then fossils aren't a pioneer, so then it falls. But then if somebody were to say that it's some sort of a positive from there to there, then I would say fossils would have to describe taphonomy, which it isn't doing because taphonomy is this thing. So any way that A sliced is wrongo bongo. B gives me a person as a subject, so I love it. This is saying that it is a pioneer. That's not true. And this is saying that a 2005 analysis is a pioneer. A person is a pioneer. Easy peasy. 18, we've got another conventions question. So our omega considerations are going to be checked for. I don't see, oh no, I do see something. This is the complete sentence mix-up. This is the CS mix-up. I've got the space. I've got the lonely Coco. I've got the lonely comma. And I've got the beauty that we could pick. So I'll pick him and go looking for a complete sentence on either side. I immediately see something's wrong. As I look to the right, I see that an is right here. Is isn't going to start a sentence unless it's a question of some sort, and it's not. So I know that this isn't the complete sentence mix-up. I'm going to immediately abandon strat, check for consistency now with this dash. I don't see another dash, but as I go looking, I see this comma. I imagine this could be a bridgy poo. loving the way that C is looking at this moment. Photosynthesis is fueled. Love reading over the bridge. The thing below the bridge describes the thing before the bridge, and that means that this 18 is a gorgeous choice for C. Did I click it? Yes. 19, another conventions question. We absolutely love this. We've got verbs on the table. We check for number first. Both singular, singular, neither. We've got two possible odd mans out here. I'm going to go looking to the sentence. I see an immediate comma before that, which is going to take off my verbs that tell me when, because that would be absolutely unhinged. There isn't another comma going on. Oh, there it is. Whew, I was very confused for a moment. We've got a little bridgey poo right here. We've got the author begins her novel. We need something to be under this bridge. So A or D is going to be the right answer here. Which was looked. This is not a reduced relative clause, so this is wrong. While she was looking, this is what a present participle in this reduced form is absolutely living to do. 20. Conventions. We check our omega considerations. Once again, we've got verbs, which is very nice. We've got the plural, we've got the singular, we've got the plural, and we've got the plural. I'm going to go biasing the odd man out, go looking for the subject, over the bridge, got the person. That one is absolutely free. 21, omega considerations. We check for these guys. Again, I don't see any. I can look for consistency. I'm going to go after this semicolon. I don't see another semicolon. I do see this little comma here, so I'll check the comma for making a bridge. I know, just like what I said a few questions ago, the were being under a bridge is terrifying to me because were is always telling me when it needs to be involved with the clause, and this would take out all material. I also know that I don't have a complete sentence to the right because this were, unless it ends in a question mark, we're not going to be starting with a were. So I kind of hopped past equivalence and I dabbled in the final four like I did last time, just because when you have such an intimate understanding of this test, these things just all come together and you can't help but notice these to be verbs screaming at you. So this right side is in a complete sentence, makes that fall. We've got the necessity for a subject to be connected to a verb, and we've got the innovative works as my subjects. Everything else would separate a subject from a verb with a piece of punctuation. We just need to have an uninterrupted relationship. 22, we've got our transition questions. The grammar fun is over. I'm going to go to my clause that matters. When slow blinkage, speakers talked for less time. When slow blinkage talked for less time, quicker blinks for longer. So we're contrasting quick and slow. We need some sort of contrast. D is going to be our answer. 23. We are looking into the sun. Most of the planets that have been discovered outside of our solar system orbit G. Most planets that have been discovered outside our solar system orbit. I'm sorry. Give me a moment. We back. Most planets outside orbit G-type, gangsta type stars like our sun. In 2014, researchers identified a planet orbiting Celt A, which is a B-type. We have, is there any mix-up of outside or inside? I don't think that matters at all. It's just most do G. This one does B, so we've got contrast again. 24. We are going to go looking for something. I'm going to start here, as suggested by the show's title. The art reflects a mix of cultural influence. Her work is grounded in both this. So it wouldn't be an example because it's giving the two that they are. The both kind of bounds, restricts it to that. So it's going to be a specifically too easy. Now we're on to the notes questions. 25. Let's parse out our goal. We want to explain the origin of the name. Origin of the name. Origin of the name. Explain the origin. Explain the origin of the name. I'm just grounding that in my mind so I feel intimate with it. Now I can go looking first on the right side. The meteor shower is named for the constellation. This one seems gorgeous right off the bat. A meteor shower's name may be linked to a single spot in the sky. This is a generality. If it said explain how meteor showers get their name, then that's what I would be looking for, but it doesn't, so I won't pick it. I'm on to C. The meteor shower, which is a radiant, which has a radiant, is visible. This is where it is, not how it got its name. Should appear to originate such as one within this. No non-nerd would be able to connect this to the notion of how it was named. So A is going to be the right answer. We've got something about lakes. We want to contrast the two definitions. I'm not going to make a note of this because I can log that contrast the two definitions. Wisconsin, which doesn't take claims that it has. We have no idea what Minnesota's is. We want that to be a part of the answer. Because its definition of a lake is different from Minnesota's, it's unclear. I like that so far, but I don't know stating that it's different doesn't make me fall in love with what it is, but I'll leave them on the table. According to Minnesota's definition of a lake, an inland body of water this is using one to go after the other, but we're not contrasting the definition. So they're different definitions, but we're using Minnesota's on Wisconsin doesn't tell us the difference between the definitions. Theoretically, they could be the same. D's on the table. Minnesota's definition of a lake here is more restrictive than Wisconsin, which doesn't take absolutely. We're just going to make sure that B is true. Minnesota's definition of a lake, an inland body of water of at least 10 acres, gorgeous. Wisconsin, which doesn't take, Wisconsin has over, Wisconsin definition doesn't take size into account, so D is true, and I'm going to select it. Stating that there's a difference isn't really what I'm looking for. We want to emphasize words. How many differences? We've got difference, we've got contrast, we've got origin. We had contrast for 2 of these. Man, we've got a theme for this test, don't we? 27. Emphasize the difference between surface dwelling and cave dwelling Tetris. Surface dwelling and cave dwelling Tetris may belong to the same species but are quite. This is another one where like I'll leave him on the table for now, but just saying that they're different doesn't really give me what I want. Can no longer see but use. This is one side of the puzzle, but it's giving me insight as to what's different about them. Are species with 2 distinct populations. This is that they are different, but it doesn't tell me how they're different, so I guess I'll leave A on the table, but A and C are both kind of trash for this exact same reason. Surface dwelling can C, whereas I love the way that D is. I'll just make sure that it's true. 2 distinct. Surface, C, good. This is kind of intuitive. You would imagine that the ones in the cave can't see, have lost the ability to see. This one's true, so we are on to question 1. Word choice. What do we got? I don't see any obvious signal elements. As I skim around, I do see this list down here, and when I engage with it, this preposition is going to be the signal element. I don't like saying that prepositions are signal elements just because they're so omnipresent and you'd be chasing ghosts constantly. But this comma before it is kind of demonstrating that it's almost like a colon, that it has an enormous cast of characters, that it is complicated, a complicated wandering plot, and that it's page numbers. So my anticipatory words are like depth and uniqueness from this, and we've got complexity, which is a gorgeous match. I've got a but right here, which I love as a signal element. I go back a sentence, eager to promote, but she was maybe like afraid. She was she wanted to promote it, but she was afraid of speaking it. I'm going to do a little check. Nothing matches. This kind of gets off the table. Nothing matches, so I'm going to read a little bit more. This challenge by asking her grandmother. This is going to be my next signal element to help her pronounce. Oh, so she didn't know how to say it, so she was inexperienced for this one. Next sentence, I'm looking for a signal element of this is going to be my signal element, kicks me back a sentence that were previously unavailable to broadcasters. Jenkins recognized and took full advantage of this new access to powerful technology. My anticipatory word is new, and then it's newfound. Sorry again. Give me a moment. Someone would have to think that like a Newfoundland is only reserved to be a dog of some sort, so they wouldn't want to pick Newfound, but new and Newfound, they mean at least the same thing to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Probably not, though. 4, I see this little colon. The sounds produced can differ is going to be my signal elements context clue between the ridges and the things that are so much variances that are highly variable. Oh, wow, that's just the word itself. Man, those were so easy. There is such a dramatic difference between the complexity of word choice questions on the PSAT versus the regular DSAT, but especially the real test. Man, those can be so abusive. So don't take the strats in the previous section as, wow, it's so easy, that's all I have to do, because they do get much harder than that. 5, based on the text, Frères, team, and author of text 2 would most likely agree. This is such a different kind of text question. Though it's not asking me to respond from one to the other, I'm still going to do text 2 first because I don't think they anticipate this gangsta life. So I'm going to go after text 2 first. Microbes are everywhere. So it is unlikely they would be completely absent from the team studies. So since microbes are everywhere, they would have to be, since microbes are everywhere, they would have to be at the site, regardless of extreme environment. There were some there probably, but the tech couldn't detect. Ooh, bars. But since But since a spoonful of typical soil elsewhere might contain billions, the presence of so few in the Antarctic soil samples would show how challenging the conditions are. Okay, but since that there were so minor, and they're attributing it to bad tech and hard to spot, shows how much the conditions bodied the microbes. So I'm going to start getting some off the table because they have to agree with statements. So if there's something that text 2 would completely disagree with, I'll take them off the table. Then if I have to, I'm going to go looking for one. So 5A, most microbes are better able to survive in environments with extremely dry conditions than extremely harsh temperatures. I don't think this is going to be the right answer. This guy has said nothing about dryness or harsh temperatures. He's saying that anything that's extreme would be bad, so I'm going to take A off the table. A much higher number of microbes would probably be found if another sample of soil were taken from the... I don't think that he would agree with this statement. That current technology, no, nobody can do it. The technology just isn't there to be able to do this. So for 5, that falls off the table. Microbes are likely difficult to detect in the soil at the Antarctic side. Okay, because they tend to be smaller. No, that's garbage. D, most microbes are probably unable to withstand. Yeah, that's all that they're saying. I'm not even going to read text 1 because this guy would not agree with any of these statements. I'm imagining, based on the sentence, there were probably so few that they couldn't detect them, that this is going to say that there weren't any, but both of them would agree with this entailment. They have to, and it's the only one. These 3 items, text 2 doesn't discuss at all, so we're going to get that out of the way. We've got a main idea question, so to the final sentence, let's do a little summary and then start at the start. Just a little bit. All right, we'll pop out a zoom here. 6. But if, for example, the results from a wild study and a lab study contradict it, but the results from each, I guess it would be methodology, contradicts, that's a big word, contradicts one or both, we want to leave that as it is, one or both must have made a mistake. All right, so let's go to the start and start reading about these little birds and the stuff the scientists did with dumb birds. Some animal behavior study involved some in wild, some in lab. All right, next sentence, each has ADV. Next sentence, in wild studies, presume the animals wild equals normal behave. And we've got in the lab equals easy controls. But the results, now I'm reading this with this in mind, but the results from each method, but if the results from each methodology contradicts, one or both must have made a mistake. All right, let's start engaging with this chunk on the right. When the results of a natural habitat study and those from a lab study of wild animals, such as the western scrub, they conflict. Okay, so far, 6 is looking gorgeous. The study in the natural habitat is more likely to have accurate results. No. Each has advantages. If one was bad, then they wouldn't even study it there. On to B. Studying wild animals such as the western scrub jay in both their natural and lab settings, good, is likely to yield conflicting results that researchers... No. So this was under the condition. There's no statement about likelihood of this condition. It's just stating that if there is a contradiction, this is why. So I don't like it already. Conflicting results that researchers cannot fully resolve? No. This would be saying that one or both have failed to account some factor. They could go investigating that factor. B is way too negative. I am getting a little afraid, though, that I'm taking these off the table. We've got C or D. Wild animals such as the western scrub jay can be effectively studied in their natural habitat. I like C so far. This is gorgeous. But each approach has drawbacks that could affect the accuracy. Yes, could easily presume, and in lab studies, this is aligning with everything that I'm saying. I really like the way that C is looking right now. Let's look at D. Differing results between natural and lab studies of wild animals, such as the scrub jay, are a strong indication that one of them is wrong, that both of the studies has design flaws that affected the accuracy of the results. No, because one or both must have made a mistake. If it said one or both, a strong indication that one or both, I would have loved this, but it's not saying that they're both failures. One's right, possibly. So C is more general, because this is narrowing specifically on a detail that conflicts with the text. C is going to be the right answer. 7, main idea. We've got 2 sentences to summarize here. We've got for the orchestra's eye contact program. For the program, he gets the community involved to learn some basic elements of conducting and then experience conducting. To learn conducting and executing they're not executing anyway. Executing conducting. All right. First sentence, what do we got? Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra, founded by Jacqueline Janson, performs classical music. The orchestra performs classical and from well-known composers and contempt. Okay. There is a big focus on this guy, though. I don't want to, though my summaries doesn't add, I'm going to add it to both. The orchestra formed by him. Which choice best states the main idea of the text? The Black Pearl Orchestra performs music from all over the world. No, I don't. It's like all over whens is what it would be, not where. Johnson founded the Black to perform classical music by contemporary artist Jesse Montgomery. No. From to. Yeah, so it's giving range. B is hilarious. Johnson was just the biggest fan of this guy to ever live, or person to ever live, so he created all of this just to perform work by that person. No. C and D, the Black Pearl Orchestra gives community members a chance to both listen to. I love the way that C is looking so far. Johnson as community members conduct an orchestra to demonstrate. No, I'm sure everybody would imagine that it's tough. So C is going to be the right answer. We are supporting Martin and colleagues' conclusion here with this one. Let's go looking to the final bit. They concluded that the dam changed the flow in the river in ways that benefited grass plants but didn't benefit trees. So the dam helped grass. Dam did not help trees. Oops, I forgot to read the title. Let me go to that guy right now. Characteristics of the banks of the Provo River downstream of the dam. So let's start understanding what we're saying with this chart real quick. Grass covers here, bare soils here, forest covers here. This is referring to square miles, so grass going up shows that the dam helped, and then forest cover down hurt or did not help, right? Because all we need is at least a plateau. So we can start engaging with these items. The lowest amount of grass cover was approximately 58,000 square meters. The lowest amount of grass cover was approximately 50 out, true. And the highest amount of forest cover was approximately 75,000 square meters. That's true. So I've seen this so many times. A is going to be tempting for a lot of people, but I know immediately that this one's going to be wrong because using the chart, you can extract that the numbers are true, that this is the lowest and it goes up. But the language of this does not convey that. Theoretically, the lowest amount could have been 58, but then the next amount could have been 59, and the next amount could have been 60. Whereas the highest amount could have been 75, the next amount could have been 74, and the next amount could have been 73. This trick they'd love to do, where they count on you reading the graph to make the claim, but the words should do it themselves. So I'm going to take A off the table, though I imagine a lot of people would leave it. Step 1, there was more grass cover than forest cover in there was more grass cover than forest cover in 1987. That's not true. There was less grass cover than bare soil. I don't really care about bare soil. Bare soil, no. I don't care about the relationship between bare soil, but I guess maybe there was less grass cover than bare soil in 1987. That's true. But more grass cover than bare soil. More grass cover than bare soil in 1993 and 2006, whereas there was more forest cover than bare soil in all 3 years. Sure, but there was more forest cover. This is similarly wrong to A. Reading into the chart, you can see that this is true, but theoretically, forest cover could be higher than everything this entire time. So that falls. Grass cover increased, whereas forest cover decreased. This is exactly what we're talking about. We are trying to prove that the dam helped grass. How would we prove it from the language of here? It went up. Well, how could we also prove that it didn't help trees? Well, forest cover went down. D is going to be our answer for A. We've got a claim that we're supporting. We've got little quotations here, which is very nice. We can go to the text and start engaging. We've got this. In a research paper, a student claims that the corporation for, we've got a lot of proper nouns here. This is rough. We have, in a research paper, a student claims that the corporation, CPB and NPR were inspired by the British broadcasting system, which had been established in 1920. So we want to show that they were influenced or inspired by. Although the BBC had begun as a private corporation, politicians successfully argued to make it a public company because they believed a public broadcast. No, this just seems to be focusing on one lens. I'm going to take it off the table. For many decades, the BBC had no competition since it held Britain's only broadcasting license, whereas in the United States, the corporation and NPR had already filled with competitors. We have no notion that they were inspired, be false. Congress's embrace of publicly funded broadcasting reflects a common belief among U.S. politicians that the role of government was not only to ensure safety and liberty, but also to, I have no idea how this would even trick someone into think it was inspired. Man, fingers crossed that D is something that's beautiful. The goal of the BBC was to support British democracy by promoting an informed citizenry. And the U.S. legislators believed that ensuring access to high-quality programs could do the same. D's, I was getting very scared. This part shows could do the same. They knew about it. Therefore, they activated it. Absolutely. Do we have the notion that inspired? I was getting scared there. We want to use data from the table to complete the text. What do we got over here? 19.6% of respondents said that the most effective way to conserve energy was to turn off the lights. I did see that it started with 4 examples, so what am I exemplifying? That respondents tended to name curtailments more often than they did in efficiency. So we've got a curtailment here. That means we want an efficiency. So we want to be talking about light bulbs or cars. This is saying efficient cars, which I like, but it's 2.8, which is a liar. Thermostat isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for an efficiency. This is giving us an efficiency, and it's true. We want to support the researcher's concluded that the segments flowing into lake, more sediment into lake, less sediment out of lake. I'm going to start engaging with my items here. The segments of the Missouri River had higher levels of chlorophylla, which contributes to the green color. Sorry. I don't know. A is garbage. It's talking, I don't know where these things are in the lake. We've got green. I don't know what that's coming from. In lakes, which segments of the Missouri River pass the dominant wavelength tend to be near the lake's shore and in the lake's center. That's not, I'm going to take A off the table because it's not talking about flowing into lakes and out of lakes. At least this is giving us center and shores, which is close. The majority of the segments of the Missouri River were found to have, no, this is again, C's, I'm getting a little afraid though, because I haven't read the text and I don't know where this NM, the nanometers are coming from, but B's at least giving us the 2 different parts. Segments of the Missouri River flowing into lakes typically at dominant wavelengths of, flowing into lakes had this has to be it. Near and that doesn't do flowing in and out. I wouldn't say that the center is flowing in and then the outside's flowing out. This is giving me the language that I want, and it's got to be the right answer. Logically complete the text for 12. What do we got? The crows don't do the same with basic tools. This suggests. So the crows don't do the same with basic tools. This suggests. Well, what is it that they do? So I have to go back a sentence. When studying, they found that they hold the hooks while not using, or they store them, which is not done with basic. So my anticipation for this is they value the tools more because they clutch them like they don't do with basics. So let's start getting to the items. Hook tools are more valuable. Yeah, hook tools are more valuable. A is right into my heart. I hope I'm not being tricked. Hook's tools are easier for the crows to hold. No, because they put them in a safe place as well. Crows prefer to share their hooked stick tools. Sharing? No, they store them like little goblins. Crows realize that both kinds are less effective than their claws. No, they value the hooked tools. Get out of my face. Final question? Easy peasy. Logically completes the text. The archaeologists' finding therefore suggest. We've got a nevertheless there, but let's try to see what this is giving us first. I found historical artifacts such as clay figures and jewelry. They found stuff, figures, and jewelry that give info about customs and organization. I want to engage with this nevertheless because I have no idea. This is just what archaeologists do, so I don't know what I would conclude from there. Researchers haven't yet deciphered it or identified which ancient language it represents. But researchers haven't yet deciphered, even though no language, they found stuff. Okay, now we can engage. I have an idea now. Investigating an ancient civilization is easier. No, easier without knowledge. They don't have it, but they were still able to find. So despite the fact that this is kind of fighting against the nevertheless, knowing an ancient civilization isn't necessary. I like the way that B's looking. They didn't know it, but they could find some stuff and learn about them. Archaeologists' research should focus on finding additional artifacts rather than deciphering ancient languages. Shots fired at archaeologists. Examining the civilization's historical has resolved the debate. No, there was no statement that they now know the language, and I don't know what someone would be able to get from the text to get there. So that's it. Easy peasy. I'm going to go back to that nanometer question and just make sure that D was the right answer. I'm going to do a little bit more reading since I have the time. The lakes typically had a dominant. What does it mean to have 560? 560 is yellow. What does it mean to have yellow? Rivers in sediment appear yellow. Rivers rich in sediment appear to be yellow. Segments flowing into lakes typically have a dominant wavelength of light above 560. Flowing into had more. Yeah, so that was spot on. Absolutely so good. Man, this test is too much fun. All right, now that's it. I have the time running down, but I really hope that the audio worked out on this one. I hope the volume, it ain't popping. It's not too loud. You can lower it in a way. I hope that this was it.